so I've got a bit of work to do.
Yeah, no, I'm studying like a milli rocket. Skin clear, still look young, Andy Miller knockers, money in my pocket.
What's going on, guys? My name is Zach Kincaid. I'm a musician, creative, and entrepreneur. And today we're going to be taking this space and turning it into a studio, both for music and YouTube. So not only does it need to be musically appealing, it needs to be visually appealing as well. And that's exactly what I'm going to try to do today. Now, as you can hear, this is a very, very echoey room. It's very, very bad. So we are gonna fix it in a future video, but for now, we're just gonna roll with it, kind of get us set up. I will be doing a future video on soundproofing. Now let me go handheld real quick and kind of explain why I'm going front to back instead of going side to side. If I went side to side, as you can see, there's way less depth of field behind me, which not only makes it less visually appealing, but it also does not give sound waves enough room to travel, especially if you have lower bass sound waves, which, as you know, I do a lot of hip hop, which is kind of bass heavy, so you want to be able to complete the sound wave. You want to set up your studio with as much length as you can possibly have. Now, real quick, let's go ahead and talk about this area right here. As you can see, I have a desk here. This is not my studio desk, actually a desk adjacent to it. That desk is gonna be Nicole's for when she comes over here and she needs to do some work. This is where I'm gonna be when I need to do emails or do some heavy typing, where I kinda wanna be in that laptop mode. Having a desk back here kinda gives me that availability. Now, let's it's pretty heavy, I'm gonna sit that down. Let's talk desk positioning. Now, there are several different ways you can go with this, but the mistake most people make is trying to maximize the most space they have. And in some situations, that's all you can do. For example, my closet studio, I have this desk pushed 100% up against the wall. What that does is it gives you bass buildup behind your speakers. And if you watch one of my previous videos, I talked about how I never mixed in that room because it was not sound treated. And the reason being, I couldn't hear the bass. The bass was always lost. So in this room, I want to make sure it's set up so I can get a pretty decent quality mix. So I'm going to use what's called the 1/3 rule. Now basically what that is you measure the length of your room and you want your listening position, not your desk. Keep that in mind. Your listening position, where you're going to sit, where your ears are, you want that 1/3 of the way through this room. Now with this room in particular, I already measured it. This back wall to this one over here is actually 17 feet. So we're going to divide that by 1/3 and we're going to stick a chair there because that is where I'm going to be sitting. So we're going to figure out exactly where we're going to go. We're going to do 17 divided by 3, so 5.66. So basically we want to set this 5 2/3 feet throughout the room. So now I have my measuring tape set to 5 2/3 feet and we're actually just going to measure from the wall. So seating position is right here. Now if you look at this back wall right here, you see that it has these indentations. And it makes the wall less flat, less parallel, versus this wall only has one indentation and then it goes all the way over here where it's kind of like a door area. And the truth is, I'm probably gonna have some sound get trapped in there. But in this situation, I really had to put the desks there because if I put both of them there, it wouldn't have been able to really open the door. And I did want them to be next to each other. I just feel like it's a clean look. Also, even though it would probably benefit me more to have the desks over here, you gotta remember, sound isn't stagnant. It's going to start over here and travel all the way over here. And since this is not a completely parallel, flat surface, I'm still gonna get some of the benefits of the weird shapes. So now we're gonna start the build out, and I just wanna start by saying every product I am gonna be using is going to be linked in the description of this video so you can go get it yourself. Most of the products I use are very relatively inexpensive. They are still a bit of money, but when you look at some other things, like say there are some studio desks alone that cost like 10 grand, this is a very affordable way to do it. This is not the chair I would use for a studio. I highly recommend, if you're gonna be spending hours in something, you wanna get something that's comfortable and that's gonna support your back. And this ain't it, fam. Now, first things first, shout out to the natural lighting from this window. Although windows are not good for a studio, they are the most reflective thing you could possibly have. I do shoot videos in here as well, so I know it's not gonna be a perfect studio. And actually, I kinda like the natural light. I'm gonna get some curtains to block it and kinda give me some sound deadening. That way I can have kind of like a light and dark mode. But let's start off with probably the most important part of building any kind of studio desk setup, the desk itself. I actually have a studio desk by a company called On Stage. If any of you have bought some music equipment, you've probably heard of this because they're very, well, not really cheap, but they're very entry-level or affordable stuff. Even this desk ran me about $200 when I first got it because I also got the rack attachment where I can put some other stuff. You'll see it later. I got the rosewood color. It does come in all black. I think it actually comes in a white now as well, but I went with rosewood. I just thought it looked good. About $150 to $200. You could probably find one used. This one will actually be for sale whenever I do upgrade desks, so you know, if you want to stick around for that, go ahead. Okay, so now that we got our desk set up, it's all sturdy and stuff, we're gonna go to our next step, which is actually making sure you're in the center of the room. So we already did 1/3 for the listening position right here, but now we're gonna measure wall to wall to make sure we're directly in the center of the room. 57, 58 inches, closer to 61 inches. So we actually have a little bit of room to move over. So we're 58 on this side, we're gonna have to move over 1.5 inches. All right, it's a situation like this where you already don't have a perfect room. You want to perfect the things you can't perfect. So we're gonna move it over 1.5 inches. Literally that much. Is this overkill? Maybe, but it's worth doing. Now we're perfectly centered listening position. We just have to sit at a desk. We're gonna do the exact same principle, measure from corner to corner, making sure it's the middle. Now, as you can see, I do have a dresser over there, but that is gonna be moved, so I am gonna still measure wall to wall. Ooh. Now, since this was a little bit heavier of an object, I'm just gonna go ahead and remeasure it just because I might have moved my hand a little bit. Pretty much 39 on this side, so this is where we're gonna be. The last thing we need to check now that the listening position is in the center, we have it 1/3 back, we have the desk directly in the center of the room, we have to measure to make sure each corner is the same amount of width from the wall, make sure it's not angled a little bit because that could be throwing off our measurements. And that is how you perfectly measure to make sure you are in the best listening position you possibly can for your room. Now, if you notice a little bit, my camera is actually a little bit off center. When I first came in here, I set the camera as close to the middle as I possibly could. But as you can see, after making these measurements, my guesstimate for what was the middle of the room was actually off. So your eyes can deceive you. The shadows can mess with you a little bit. Different angles, different corners can mess with you a little bit. So don't guess on this. Get a measuring tape. It's not expensive. Just take that little bit of time and that will give you the best possible setup you can for your environment. Now onto the front side. Okay, so next we got our speakers. I use the KRK Rokit 5s. I've had these things for about 4 years and I absolutely love them. There's a reason so many people use these monitors. They are a little bit bass heavy, but for doing hip hop production, it's actually not the worst thing because since they are bass heavy, whenever you do your masters and your mixes, it's not gonna come out too overpowering on bass because you're gonna be adjusting for this little bit of speaker. You can actually make adjustments to the back of it. As you see, you can adjust your high level adjust, low level, and then your overall volume. But make sure whatever you do, you have both speakers mirroring exactly the same because if one is louder than the other, it's gonna sound like it's coming to you louder. You don't want that, obviously. So we're gonna go ahead and get this one set up. I'm pretty sure this is my left speaker, but it really doesn't matter. I like to have them in the right position. Actually, this is the right one. We're missing foam. This is from Ultimate Acoustics. Now, the reason you want to use foam like this is it actually separates your speaker from the desk, so you're not getting any resonance of this sound. In a true professional environment, you would want to get the speaker its own stand. That way it's not even interacting with your desk, it's completely isolated. But, you know, with the budget I currently have, with the budget most of you probably have, those full-length stands can get expensive unless you're getting cheap ones, which at that point, there's no point in getting them. Now, there are desk stands that you can use. I know ISO Acoustics makes some. For me, I don't think they're necessarily worth the price. I mean, they do look prettier. I might get them one day, but if we're actually just separating, this foam does a great job. It's not that expensive. And if you look, it actually has adjustments so you can angle your speaker however you want. So if your chair sits a little bit lower, you can have your speaker on it and then angle down at you. So it's giving you a better listening angle. Now as you can see, the speakers are on the foam and I'm actually resting quite a bit of weight on them and the foam is not budging. It's made specifically for speakers. It is gonna isolate it from the desk. You can buy a stand if you want. I don't necessarily see the need to, except they do look prettier, but this foam actually works really, really well. As you look, I'm actually pushing heavy into it and it's still holding its shape. So it is structurally sound. Your speakers are not gonna sink in on this. And it is, as you can see, isolating it about 2 inches off the desk, which in most situations is gonna be good enough unless you're in an extremely professional environment. The next thing we want to do speaker-wise is actually do some more measurement. So you actually want your speakers to make a triangle with your ears. The reason being, it's going to give you the best sound, it's going to give you the cleanest listen, it's going to give you the best spatial awareness. And the way you do that is you want to make a perfect triangle. So what we're going to do is we measure tweeter to tweeter, and then we measure from tweeter to my ear to get the perfect position for the speakers. Another mistake a lot of people make is they just have their speakers facing forward like this, and then they're making the triangle, which you can make a triangle like this. I'm not saying you can't. Is that now your speakers are firing past you instead of to you, which is great if you're trying to throw a party or something like that. But when you're listening, when you're trying to mix, you want these bad boys angled in at you. Now the first thing I'm noticing is my height right now is actually perfect with these speakers. That's gonna change once I get the new chair in because the height might be a little different. But for now, I don't have to adjust these foams anymore to raise it up or down or angle it or anything like that. So for my ears to these speakers, I just measured it out. It's 3 feet on both sides. I'm not actually able to get 3 feet between these. So what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna creep the speakers up to me, put them closer to a listening position. That way they can be closer together. The more room behind, the better. I got the measurements pretty good. I've got 30 inches between each one of these, and to my ears, it's about 32 inches, which isn't a perfect triangle, but if I'm mixing, I can always lean up a little bit. I don't think 2 inches is gonna make that much of a difference. I have them as far up and as far out as I can while keeping them pretty steady. They are partially hanging off, just like that much hanging off the edge. But you know what? They're stable, they're gonna be here, and that's how we're gonna leave it. Now the next thing I have is actually my power conditioner. And I know some of you are thinking, what is this? Basically, if you look at the back, it's basically a big power strip, but a power conditioner works a little bit different. The one I have is the Furman M8X2. I believe it was like $80. Again, link in the description for everything. This is not necessary. I just want to go ahead and say that. I bought this because it gave me a cleaner setup, but basically what a power conditioner does is make sure that all of your devices are getting the proper amount of power they need. So in the US, our circuits are supposed to run at 120 volts. Our devices are made to take in 120 volts, but that power fluctuates all the time. It's never gonna completely have 120 volts. So what a power conditioner does is it stores a little bit of energy on its own. So if it ever has a spike in energy, say it's hitting 121, it's only gonna feed 120 to your devices, and if it has 118, 119, it's gonna then power your devices at extra 2 volts to basically make sure that everything's getting exactly 120 volts across the board. Again, not necessary, you can use a power strip, but this is gonna keep your equipment healthier longer. So the next thing I have is actually my audio interface. I use the Focusrite 2.4. It's a very inexpensive audio interface, but you still get really, really high quality sound out of it. I highly recommend Focusrite's products. For any beginners, they're super good quality, they're super good build, and they're very, very affordable for what you're getting. I like sticking mine right in here in the power conditioner. It just gives it a clean look. But the reason you have to have one of these is not only to get your mic signals in, but these are passive speakers, meaning they have to be powered and they have to have a high signal sent to them. So you can't really just power these with an aux cord like you would basic computer speakers. You have to have XLRs. Now, just a little quick piece of advice. If you're gonna try to tuck it into an area like this, make sure you run your cables on the back first, or else it is a nightmare to get through. Don't ask me how I know. Actually, ask me how I know. It's a pain in the ass. And the next thing we got, which is one of the more important things, especially in today's time, is actually a USB hub. This is a Amazon Basics hub. I believe it was like $15. But you want to make sure you get one that's powered on its own and that's not running off your computer, or else you're not going to get the full power of it. This one's USB 3, it has up to 10 different connections, so it's a pretty good deal. Now, normally with this, what I would do is I would just stick it under there and just kind of hide it away, but it kind of shows all the chords, and I'm going for a really, really clean look. So what I'm going to be doing is actually trying out these command strips, seeing if I can just stick it on the back of here, kind of out of sight, out of mind. So next I have hard drives. These are just regular spinning hard drives. They're pretty cheap now. They're not SSD, and the reason they're not SSD is because I'm not really working off of them. One of them is just a backup. One of them is actually kind of how I hold all of my completed media files. Think of it as like a media library, like a bank of all my finished work. Once this is full, I'll put another one in. And then I actually do run a Samsung T5 SSD. I'm gonna be making a video all about that and why I think if you don't have hard drives, it's one of the worst mistakes you can make as a creative, because they're very, very helpful in keeping stuff off of your computer, keeping you clean, and also keeping your computer running the best it can. So definitely don't skip out of hard drives. I recommend 3, well actually 4 if you count the one on your computer. So one hard drive on your computer, one for backup, one for storing mass files, and then another one for storing projects and sounds. I'll make a video all about it in the future, but that's what you need to know for now. The next thing I have is actually a monitor. I just want to start by saying this is absolutely not necessary, especially if you have a larger laptop like I do, 16-inch. I like using this because I enjoy using a mouse and keyboard, especially when I'm doing some video editing or any kind of heavy mixing. I really like feeling like it's a full desktop, so definitely recommend getting a monitor. This is actually a cheap Samsung monitor. I think it is the Samsung S24 F3. It's just a cheap monitor. I'll have a link in the description for it. It's 1080p, it's a pretty decent color accuracy too. And it's got a FreeSync. It's like 2 milliseconds response time, which is actually kind of decent for gaming. I sometimes put my PlayStation on in the setup and then I go for it. I actually have dropped this one. If you can see, there's a couple of cracks right here. I dropped it and it still works. So for like 120, 130 bucks, not bad. Obviously you need a computer. I run a 16-inch MacBook Pro. Computer's kind of subjective to whoever you are. I will have a link in the description for the 13 and the 16-inch MacBook Pro. Even though I made a video saying, do not buy the 13-inch MacBook Pro, I'd like to clarify right now, if you are just solely doing music production and light video editing, 13-inch MacBook Pro is absolutely the way to go. I never had a problem with any kind of projects. I never had any kind of issues when it came to audio, and doing these little YouTube videos here and there, it actually blazed through it. Where I had issues was when I started editing some high frame rate stuff. If you're doing something like that, then the 16-inch is where you're going to want to go. But I will go on the record right now in saying that the new 2020 13-inch MacBook Pro is still the best MacBook for music production if you're not doing super high quality producer, making money, making a living off of it kind of stuff. Next thing I've got is actually my microphone. I use an SM7B. I love this mic. It's great for podcasting, it's great for gaming, and it's also great for recording music. For those of you who say it's not, Michael Jackson's entire Thriller was recorded on this. Logic records on this, John Bellion records on this, Kanye records on this. A lot of people who are very established use this mic, and it's a super affordable mic. Link in the description. Shure SM7B. End up with this blue coil arm, so it kind of hangs off the side of the desk. Another thing you kind of need to have with that microphone though is a cloud lifter. Basically, this takes your input level and amplifies it very cleanly without introducing any kind of sound. When you're using a dynamic microphone, if you're turning your gain up, you're going to start getting gain noise in order to get the levels you need. This allows you to use those dynamic microphones without introducing any kind of artificial noise and still getting those gain levels that you need. Next, I'm going to talk about my mouse and keyboard. I just use an older Apple keyboard. I don't even think it's called a Magic Keyboard yet. I think it's just an Apple wireless keyboard. And then I use a Logitech MX Master. I believe this is the MX Master 1, so it is a little bit older, but I've never had an issue with it. And then I actually picked up this thing. It is a Mousepad and wireless charger combo. It's from a company called Blackweb. I believe I got it on Amazon. Like I said, all the links to this stuff is in the description, but I highly recommend this. It's a very nice surface, and that wireless charger definitely comes in handy. Also, gotcha. Okay, so now we basically have everything set up that's a necessity. I do have some more accessories here and there. I do have a keyboard, which I will show you in a little bit. But the one thing I want to say is, regardless of how good of a setup you have, once this all gets audio treated and you're not hearing all this reverb, once I get this to be a very sound studio setup, you're still going to want to have a pair of mixing headphones, and I can't recommend the Audio Technica's MX50 more, honestly. Or what is it, ATH M50X. They are absolutely incredible. If you want a more accurate sound, you can go with the M40s, but the reason I went with the M50 is you get that 50mm driver, which gives you a little bit more bass response. That bass response is kind of similar to this, where it's a little bit more of a bass boost than a flat line, which is good because that means my mixes aren't going to be necessarily fighting each other between this and this, but I'm still going to get to hear the difference. So definitely try to match it to your speakers, but these are not only just good for, you know, using in a studio. I use this as a gaming headset too. Like, I literally connect this to my PS4 controller and I play with it. I use this for everything. They are very, very inexpensive. I believe the M50s are like $150, honestly, and they actually have a Bluetooth pair now that's like $175. So I definitely need to get you a pair of studio headphones, and I recommend the Audio Technica M50, link in the description, as well with everything else I've shown you so far. Along with mixing, I also like to do a lot of music production, and this is my go-to when it comes to production. It is the Native Instrument Komplete Kontrol S61. This is actually the first generation they made. I bought it when it was brand new, and I was one of the first people to actually have this. I got it like, I think the day it came out, and I can't recommend this keyboard more. I believe they have like a Mark II or a Mark III now, but like I said, this is the first one. I'll have a link in the description for that. Normally sits on my desk over here, but I'm actually going to just keep my mouse and keyboard on there just because it makes it easier when I'm trying to edit. And I'm actually going to get a keyboard stand. I'm going to move this. I'm going to get a keyboard stand right here, but I'm still waiting on Amazon to deliver those due to the whole, you know what's going on. But this will actually just be sitting right here. That way whenever I'm trying to make music, I can just turn this around, sit down, and I can actually play the keys while singing and recording as well. So that's going to be it for me on this one. Keep in mind, this was only part one. I got a lot of stuff still to do. We're going to be going over cable management. We're going to be going over soundproofing. We're going to be going over lighting of the studio. To, you know, giving yourself that good ambiance is just as important to your creative process as the equipment you use, honestly. You want to make sure you're in a good environment. And we're also going to go over using lighting for a studio. Now, this is only literally a third of the room you're seeing. I still have 2/3 over here that I have to work on. So we're going to be going over how to create multiple different scenes in an environment like this. And the reason I'm doing this is because I know a lot of you are aspiring creatives, musicians, and YouTubers. A lot of you are making your own content. I'm going to show you how to maximize the space you have, how to use different angles and different lighting techniques to not make it too stagnant. Because this head-on shot, this is kind of what you guys got used to when I had the closet studios. That was the only option I had. I had a little bit of a sideways one, but it was still kind of close to me. Now that I have more room, we're going to go over all that. So if you'd like to see the rest of this build out, please go ahead and like and subscribe, and leave a comment down below if I went over anything today that you want more information on. Also, if you have any products that I listed that you want me to go more in depth on, you can leave that in the comments as well, and I'll do that for you guys. It's going really well right now. I'm super excited. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Take care. Ooh, I can't do it. Take care.
Like a genie in a bottle. Been a little boy, but that no longer is my title. Used to play with toys, but now I'm playing with some models. It's my graduation day.